Hey guys, this is how to rig a character. I'm going to try to do this video in about 5 minutes. Let's go. Okay, first things first. Make sure that all of the correct items are on in your Photoshop file, and then go ahead and do a save as and create a sprite sheet version of it, so you'll move all of your pieces. So there's some of these pieces like the scarf that is actually separate, but I wanted it to move along with the head. Same thing with the bandana and the hair, and so I just left them together. And same thing with the torso and the bottom of the jacket here. So I'm going to save my sprite sheet right into the sprites folder itself. So sprite paymaster _ sprite sheet _ 111116. I'm going to move this to be November. I've got our 5 folder set up here: prefab, scenes, scripts, source images, and sprites. Source images is a new folder from last time. And in here I've got our reference image of Paymaster. Okay, now we have our images into Unity. Next step is to separate our sprite sheet out into individual pieces. So select your sprite sheet, change it to multiple, click the sprite editor. It'll ask you to apply the buttons here. And there's our sprite sheet. Let's click slice, and now it's sliced everything for us. Looking around, making sure nothing's overlapping. Looks good. Hit apply, and now we have all of our sprites individually. Switch back to hierarchy. Now you might be tempted to go ahead and drag these sprites into our little canvas here, but we want to do something first. So back in our sprite editor, we want to change the anchor points where we want them to be. So there's for his head. Scroll in to zoom, middle mouse to move around. Now in these money bags, I was tempted at first to put the anchor point here where the rope is tied onto the bag because that's the way the bag swings, but because it's attached to the rope as well, then I'm going to wherever the rope is attached to his jacket. Now we'll hit apply. Now we'll drag our pieces in. So we can see our new anchor point is in the correct spot. If I rotate the head around, then it rotates around the point in the neck that I wanted it to. Okay, now we have everything laid in, but everything's not in the right order, right? So now that we have everything laid in, then we need to change the Z depth. So if you remember, we start with our torso, which is going to be our lower torso, at 0. So everything else is going to be built from there. Negative goes in front, positive goes behind. So we'll do a negative 0.1 here, because we want the top of the torso to come in front of the bottom of the torso. See how he's leaning forward? All right, so negative 0.1, negative 0.2 on the head, then we've got negative 0.3 on the hat. Make sure the hat comes in front of the head. So with our negative 0.1 on our body, we need to have at least a negative 0.2 for the gun. The gun will come in front of the money bag though, so it'll be a negative 0.3. And then the arm will be a negative 0.2. And then the upper arm will be a negative 0.1. So we've got the forearm coming in front of the upper arm, and then the hand coming in front of this arm. So negative 0.3, negative 0.2, negative 0.1. Now we've got this money bag here. The money bag actually comes in front of everything else. So when I rotate this thing up, you can see that there's a little hole that appears in his arm. That's because of this little curve here. What we can do is double click this. We can pull it back up in Photoshop, and let's just create a little shape in here to go over that arm socket. And we'll turn that selection into a shape, and the shape automatically appears behind for us, which is lucky. If it's not, just move the layer. So we'll save this file, come back over into Unity, and watch it update in real time here. So the arm is still kind of cut off on the side, but it's so far in that we won't even notice. So now we can rotate this arm freely, okay? But we want it to come in front of the jacket, right? Because that's where the money bag is. And the jacket is at negative 1. So we need this to be negative 0.2. And there we have it. We have our guy. Everything's in the right stacking order. So we can go ahead and make this guy disappear, and we can just turn off his renderer. So we've now brought in all of the sprite images, and we've now set them up, and we're ready to start rigging. And here's an update about order in layer. You may have done this before, but if you click on this 2D button up here, you'll go into 3D. Click it again, you'll go back into 2D. So once you're in 3D and you hit Alt and you're clicking and orbiting around, you can kind of notice that some of the layers are glitching and jumping over top of each other or underneath. So for instance, his head should always be in front of his jacket, and the hat should always be in front of his head. So we're going to fix that. It's really easy. Click on his up torso here and just make sure that that's 0. Then we're going to click on his head, and his head has a Z-axis move of negative 0.1. So we're going to change our order in layer to be 1. Now when we orbit the camera around, the head will always stay in front of the jacket. So when moving sprites along the Z-axis in 3D space, going negative puts the sprite in front. But when we're working with order in layers, it's backwards. And there's no decimal points either. So just look at your Z-axis number here. So we know that our head is at 1. Now we can make our hat at 2. And now the hat will always be in front of the head, and the head will always be in front of the jacket as we rotate around the camera. Do this for the rest of the layers, and it'll always look correct even within a 3D scene. Okay, and thanks for watching.